You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I am the great sage Liam, born a twin under a full moon as Jupiter was in ascendance.
I'm Warlord Scarr. I like killing things and, bathing in their blood and getting XP for it.
And I'm, as always, SavageMick. I write my own tale, but I do have a random number table beside me while I do it. Right.
So
after that, what?
Yeah.
Go on, Liam. Please explain to our befuddled audience.
Kind of character backgrounds and the tapestry therein. From all the way from the Parents Dead Likes Adventuring up to the essay which is presented.
I need you to read my character biography so that we can have a deep and meaningfuls about why I'm going to burn down this orphanage and why I still retain my lawful good alignment.
I have the second biography that I give to the other players to read, which contains some of the which excludes some of the juicy bits.
I mean, okay, so we're sort of going around this idea of
Like I say, it wasn't just background we were going to talk about. We're going to talk about then how that feeds into you unfolding your character's story, whether it is unfolding your character's story or if it's like, I don't know, man, I just want to hit stuff.
Yeah. Like you start with background, obviously, as a basis, and how much effort you put in your backstory can do an awful lot for setting up what's going to happen in your game. But like, there's also the process of growing up as a character. Both, you go from +0 in basket whittling to +37 in basket god slaying or what have you. But also the narrative of your character. Like, do they start off neutral, turn lawful good, change to chaotic evil randomly halfway through because their parents said mean things about them, or to what extent do we value different changes that happen to the character, and how much do we value what happens because the dicey got a crit in that goblin versus I bravely put my hand inside the dragon's mouth in order to make sure he drinks the poison, and my arm is severed, and oh no, I was a great sword fighter. My entire build is ruined, but it was good, worth it for the drama.
And I don't remember telling you about that character, but yeah, that's a pretty good summation of what happened. There's a question here. How much responsibility do you have as a player to craft an interesting character arc? How much control do you have, or should you expect to have? And quite apart from writing a 1-inch thick backstory, what benefits can you hope to derive from writing your character forward, or what mechanical penalties are you willing to accept to express a more interesting character arc? All this and more on The Adventuring Party. We should do that more often. Yeah. All this and more on The Adventuring Party. Forgot the reverb that time. Right. Anyone got, at the risk of this turning into a let me tell you about my character episodes, anyone got a particular favorite from the past where they had a character that underwent one of these sort of life-altering changes, either by your own pen or by GM fiat?
I mean, one that comes to mind for me is my storm cleric called Buzzer, who was like basically just like a washed up pirate who'd been thrown overboard, in a storm because looked at someone funny or something, and just like in desperation called out to the spirits of the storm and turned into a cleric essentially, and just like randomly had these cleric powers now and had no idea what to do with them. And over the course of a campaign, he kept having these things where, well, I could do nothing that makes and just let things roll by me, or I could just start interfering with stuff to see what happens. Because I'm apparently the vessel of the forces of chaos. Just because it would completely mess up the party and cause mass destruction to the setting, there's no reason not to, just see what these powers want me to do, and sort of transformed over the thing. Kept, making these horrible mistakes that pleased the Storm Spirits. Kept getting extra powers as a result. I think, but like he started as a human, got turned into a Dragonborn for one particular, freeing of a dark god. Then there was the time he mutated into a space monster, and it just kept going with these things because, like, I wouldn't say he was rewarded. The interesting things happened because he.
The path to chaos spawnhood. So
Yeah.
was this you, or was this the GM? Or were you kind of eyeballing each other across the table and daring each other to go further?
I'm pretty sure it was sort of a mutual thing. It was like, this is definitely a GM who was willing to roll with what players put down. Like I would always agonize over it because I tend to be naturally a don't rock the boat, don't upset the party's grand plan, just for self gratification. But I gave myself permission each time because I knew how much of a random soul Buzzer was. So, and then I passed the ball to the GM. The GM would roll with it because it was an interesting thing happening. And most of the time, the rest of the party are like, "Yeah, no, okay, it's consistent with your character, so we'll forgive you this 17th time." And but yeah, like there was definitely a back and forth going on there. This is like if it had just been the GM doing it, I think I would have possibly not liked the system, the setup that much, because it was just feel, my character's being mutated again, hooray! But and if it had just been me throwing it out there, and the GM's like, no, that's stupid, nothing happens. I don't think anything would have happened, but because we had the back and forth going on,
Depending on the game you're in, it may be that there is no system or anything to do that, so it's going to have to be kind of a collaborative thing between you and the GM. I mean, some systems, like buffer mutations, an inherent part of it. Like if you get enough corruption points, you will get a mutation, and there are tables for that. Now, the GM could decide this is the mutation you get, but generally you just roll on a table. It could be a mental mutation, it could be a physical mutation.
Have you seen it at work in the wild?
Certainly, when I played First Ed, my wizard ended up with a mutation.
Come on, don't be shy.
Yeah, they got an extra eye on their chest.
Classic. Oh.
Which my character periodically burned off.
Burned off?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So
hide it, yeah, because
that's interesting.
If a witch hunter finds that, you're getting.
Yeah. Why do you have a big old burn mark on your chest there, Wizard Liam?
I'm a fire wizard. I fight a lot of chaotic creatures, and one of them used magic against me.
I like people to put out cigars on me. It's definitely not a mutation. Yeah. So, I mean, did the GM in question kind of lean into it though?
Yeah, we worked it out, and it was always a thing. It was a couple of scenes certainly where we did encounter witch hunters and stuff, and it was
another topless scene for Wizard Liam. What? He's getting his shirt off. It's quite unusual.
Periodically being down hit points and stuff.
Gotcha. Oh, from the burning.
Yeah, make your save to willingly subject yourself to that kind of.
That's really interesting.
Abuse,
that takes us to one of the kind of things that brought this topic up in the first place.
Like that's a mutation that you could hide, but like a lot of them, you're not hiding it. Like,
what are you willing to put up with mechanically in a game? Like, I think that's probably something that might hold players back, or even GMs, from kind of really getting interested with it, because it may well be that you have to take some sort of penalty. In your case, it was additional scrutiny by witch hunters and being down, as you say, hit points. I mean, do you recall how that kind of worked out at the time? Did you feel like that was an imposition, or did you kind of Yeah, you're a fairly stoic fellow. I imagine you
First dead Warfrup them's the breaks, It was, like I say, it was a mutation that was relatively easy to hide and deal with, so I felt okay about it. And given the other entries on the table, where it's like, yeah, this is pretty much character retirement, it's like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, you do want to walk that line between this makes things interesting and this makes things impossible.
Warfrup can seem a little unfair at times, because like sometimes you just get exposed to corruption, and it's by the nature of being an adventurer who's typically fighting against corruption and the forces of chaos, you will be exposed to corruption. So it's almost like you're being penalized for being an adventurer. That's the only bit that makes you feel it might feel somewhat hard done by.
There's a few systems out there that kind of lean into it. Remind Blades of the Dark, of course. It's basically you're on a timer as to how long you can keep doing this, because you are trending towards more and more crippling either addictions or injuries as you progress. It's a bit of a feature of certain systems that have kind of come along with a, let's just say, for want of an overused term, a grimmer and grittier outlook that's expressed mechanically and almost gives you a, I don't know if it's enough to say it's a character arc, but it's certainly a character countdown.
Yeah. To get you motivated your only way out is to make like 30
you
or
gotta
40 coins
make bank
before you retire.
Yeah, make bank, otherwise it's going to be a pretty miserable existence in the poorhouse for you, especially as you have to show off your stumps for coin.
Yeah.
There's other ones as well, though. Like Ars Magica has a similar system for your character being punished for being a wizard. Every time you cast spell, there's a chance of it going wrong and you going into Twilight. And typically, when you get a Twilight, well, it can be beneficial and you can get a bunch of XP and stuff, but you can also have a negative consequence and have Twilight scars, which could be pretty minor. Of I guess something like your hair stands on end when you're in the rain. Something weird like that.
Interesting.
You could have a smell of sulfur. Just all the time, a smell of sulfur just goes around you. And it's kind of that there are suggestions for it, but it's something that your GM comes up with. And so that could be something that's really mean. Or it could be something that's just kind of fun.
Mage Second Ed had a similar, it was the paradox system, I think it was, where you'd end up.
Mage Second Ed was fairly. That was the kind of when they were trying to. Well, was it? No, it wasn't. No, I'm mixing it up. Some of the mage stuff at different points tied in with Ars Magica.
Oh yeah.
I just don't recall what it wasn't
right,
Second Ed. It was at a certain point. I just don't recall when.
Yeah,
but it did have that sort of, yes. If a spell or a working went particularly wrong for you, you could end up with entirely silver skin, or the sound of pigeons following you around for a week or whatever. You kind of had to. I think you had to work it off over time. But it does remind me, of course, of, I think there's a system. It could be Thieves' World, which is way back in the day, where you had a system of Geas, which is obviously familiar enough to an Irish audience. A Geas being a sort of a kind of a gas, something between a curse and an obligation that you might be restricted to. Say, you could only eat in the presence of women, or you must rise at dawn every day for a year, something like that. Usually at the behest of some supernatural entity. But yeah, it plays into this idea of characters sort of having to do something or having to deal with some restriction or stipulation that isn't entirely their own choosing. Of course, it could be the player's choosing. It's not necessarily that the GM is just handing these things out as ways to watch their players squirm. As amusing as that is.
Yeah, that's one of the sort of developments in RPG design over the years, where we start off with sort of the arbitrary pronouncements of a GM, design zone traps or whatever in a D&D style game. And they'll just say, "Oh, this trap cuts off your legs. This trap turns you to stone, but only on Tuesdays." Or this, you put coins in this fountain, and now you've got this weird invisible fairy, following you around and zapping people they don't like the look of, or whatever. And this was in the spirit of the original early games sort of sense of play and discovery, and let's throw everything at the wall and see what happens. And then we move into, let's call them 80s or 90s systems, where they still want to have these weird things happening to their characters because they don't feel like players will accept that unless there's either GM fiat or system rules behind. And so you get the time of the random mutation table, pioneered by the likes of Wolfrup, or Cthulhu's insanity tables is another good example. And you have you end up with these systems of often random, so that it seems more fair. Even if it doesn't make
on a
much
larger
sense.
paranoia's mutation tables.
Right. So mechanically these things can happen. I think it's acceptable to say that through play or through sort of systems, this sort of character change comes about. But really, it only gets really interesting when it's kind of embraced and used to
and
take the story.
I think as time's gone on, systems have moved more and more to having the player either have input or some kind of veto powers. It's like all of a sudden mutations become something like you could accept this -1 to all stats, or you could take this interesting eye on your chest or whatever. Sort of approach of like, do you want to have like the player is like being asked more and more to choose their consequences, which feels weird to some people, really particularly GMs, who they were expecting to be the ones handing out these consequences. But it also appeals to a certain number of players who are willing to accept consequences to make things more interesting. And there's a back and forth there.
Okay. So, is there a risk that this kind of gets gamified by sort of attempting to get some sort of advantage? I know there's certain character creation systems where you can add in penalties to get more points for your points by Savage Worlds, I suspect, something like it, where you can end up being sort of lame, blind, kind of sociopath. But that's okay because they also have a doctorate and a jetpack.
Yeah, that's what
it has to be guarded together. I think it's, for me, it's this. The mechanical stuff isn't terribly interesting as a codified system because it just invites gamifying, horrible injuries or weird sort of events happening to you. I think when it comes about through play, it's quite amusing and often makes for very memorable characters. Seeing as you asked, I did have a Wookiee gladiator in a Star Wars game who at one point may have touched some Sith artifact that he really shouldn't have. And in fairness, the GM had given plenty of indicators that you probably shouldn't grab this thing. So of course I did. At which point I risked being possessed. So my natural response...
Let the GM tell you what to do.
Yeah,
not the boss of you.
And they're not the boss of me. So I went ahead and did exactly what I was told I shouldn't do. Which very quickly became apparent that, well, very good chance you're going to lose this character. So I took the decision. I kind of looked him in the eye and went, can I chop off my arm? And he kind of went, yeah, okay. That's the sort of thing, if that's where you're willing to go. So I chopped off my arm. And it remained chopped off for quite a while, let me tell you. Because
can the Wookiee still use those bowcasters with one arm?
Oh no, they cannot. It's that's a hard reload. Hard to reload those with your teeth. Let me tell you. But it did mean so first of all, I got to retain my character. Secondly, I got to do. It was entirely in keeping with who the character was to do something stupid like that. And secondly, part 2, I got to do a very classically Star Wars thing: lose a limb. And eventually,
cool new robot one.
Eventually, I got a cool new robot limb. And even further down the line, I got a grappling hook that shot out of it. I was Bionic Wookiee Commando. It was great fun. And it made for a very...
Is this also the character who got lost all's fur at some point?
That was more of a sort of a background thing as a justification for wearing pants. I'd made some artwork and I was like, why do Wookiees never wear pants? I'm not Donald Duck. So I put Pants the Wookiee, and apparently it lost a lot of fur due to an engineering accident. But there was no
I
mechanical
can see why
difference.
Wookiees don't wear pants. I mean, I know
It'd be
we
very
don't like wearing hats, and during the
true.
pandemic, and if I have the sniffles, I will wear a mask. With the beard, it was very irritating. So you can imagine all over.
So
You've got that kind of
pants,
fur.
yeah.
Probably kind of annoying.
You've got built-in pants, anyways. But no,
Yeah.
this Wookiee had pants, and therefore it required that there be no fur. And also, further down the line, I think. Oh, so that was player choice. But the really the reason I bring up this particular character was because further down the line we had I think it was like a time jump or something. It all made perfect sense in the context of a multi-year long campaign. But we woke up and many of us had radical changes made, including, in my case, a mechanical leg. So the GM sort of really went, let's lean into this one. Let's see how much of this character can we cut off. And if I recall correctly, there might have been a slight ability boost. There might have been like an extra 10 feet of jump or something like that. But it was largely
it's interesting that that the augmentations are always positive, because they're not always positive.
No, that's true. And I mean, they were a vector of attack as well. EMP grenades became a bit of a problem.
Certainly in Shadowrun in general, you can get all your augmentations, and usually they're of benefit, but they also have a cost. Like they will cost you essence, and that will make you vulnerable to certain supernatural creatures.
Yeah, which is a good way to balance out that stuff. And I suppose it's the more interesting changes to a character should ideally have the over and under. Yes, you get an intimidating scar, but you're very easily identified. Yes, you can speak with the dead, but the dead would like a word right now about something while you're trying to, have a kip or do a poo or something. It's like, this is very inconvenient sometimes and useful the rest of the time. Right, so what else can we say on this? Is there any? What are we left unexplored? Let me just look at the topic again.
Okay, well, for me, like I feel like there's a spectrum of players here. Their attitude to this kind of process of first setting up your character, but also then them changing over time, either because of story reasons or because of mechanical reasons. There's a spectrum. Like, you're going to have your basically a wargamer players to whom their character is this little man that they move around on the board, and they're going to want any changes to be made to be clean cut and very very mechanically clear, and obviously a result of a system that they'll accept a bad thing happening to character, but they want it to be because, I made this choice, this choice, this choice, and the dice rolled a certain way, and I guess I took that risk. That was an outcome that that was possible. I accepted at the time. It came out okay. I accept that, and they're going to want to have.
It was on the table.
Yeah, they're the ones who will want to have a table, and they want to know the chance of a certain thing happening at the table and the chance of having to roll the table. And if it's just going to be if it's going to be the GM deciding, what's the most narratively convenient for our overarching plot and themes, or if it's going to be something that gets tossed back to them and say, well, okay, a bad thing's going to happen to you. What do you think is going to be an appropriate bad thing for your character? They're going to be frustrated because it's going to seem like something that's just sort of plucked out of the air and that they didn't have any chance to plan or adjust for. And, the unknown is going to annoy them. Like, if it's something that was rolled on the table and has definite and clear mechanical things, they can engage that. They can say, right, well, okay, my character's arm fell off. I can't use a greatsword anymore. Can't use a bow anymore. All right, well, here's the list of other weapons I could try using instead. Or, what are the prices to get a giant knife stuck on a stump, or what have you. That's
Yeah. Now,
Then
what you may not be accounting for, just very quickly, be careful. There are some real masochists out there. Letting players choose the consequences could backfire in an interesting way. But that's kind of how you.
that was where I was going next.
Oh, very good. Sorry, go on.
There are
Please
people.
sit down at the fire and let me tell you my character's tale of woe.
Yes. So yeah, at the other end we have, I believe, Mick, you call these sort of character authors, and these are people who have a similar sort of disconnect from their characters, where the character is not a piece that they put around a board, but it is a character that they are authoring. That is that they are pushing the character to do the plot things that they think are interesting, and I've heard the expression calls of like they use their character like a stolen car, and their end point is to see how interesting the wreck is at the end.
Yeah, we're going across the storyline upside down and on fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this topic my fault again?
Lots of things are your fault.
That's fair.
But yeah, no, and these players are going to want either they may want to have bad things or good things happen to their player, to their character, regardless of what actually is happening in the plot of the game. It's just like, ooh, I have a chance to give my character something to angst about, or a chance to affirm their dedication to their cause, even though we're 5,000 miles from everyone else who's part of my cause. And they're going to want it to either be something that they have command over, or the GM is on the same wavelength as them, and has picked out something that really links the character to what's going on in the story. And if you then you say, the Greater Daemon rolls D10 on its corruption points, that means you're over the corruption point limit for your character, and now you have 4 extra arms. It's like, but my character's narrative arc is to become a noble of the land. You can't become a noble of the land with 4 extra arms, with extra demon faces growing out of them. Why have we let dice destroy all of my plans? And then, of course, you could have the happy middle, happy, the convenient middle that a lot of people just fall into automatically, which is where they don't take charge of the character. They just sort of, immerse. They're immersed in the character. It's just like, okay, we're in the character's headspace. We're doing what the character would do. This has, a lot of advantage in, being easy, and also, as I say, immersive. But it also can be the source of the infamous, well, that's what my character do behavior, where,
usually trotted out in defense of something that is entirely out of character. But I take your point. Like it is a happy sort of medium place for a lot of players to live in, because they're not making any assumptions about the control they have over the game world, which of course is naturally falls to the GM. But for the author, for the author player, they're going to be sort of talking about narrative arcs and destinies and plans for the future. It's like, well, your plans are your plans. Let's see how things shake out. The collaborative bit should never be lost.
Best laid plans of mice and men.
Yeah, I mean, the GM's plans never work out. Why do you think yours are going to?
Yeah, that's a fair point. And that's, these kind of things is like these random events, or events that the GM imposes on you, or that players impose upon the GM's plot. These can be a wonderfully inspiring thing for full campaigns of great gameplay. Sometimes getting those eyes in your chest is a really, really motivating, because I say, well, I definitely have to get away from these witch hunters now, and I should probably think of ways to either get rid of this mutation or figure out some way to make myself mutate better. Maybe I can make the eyes shoot lasers. And you're just going like none of these approaches I think are particularly bad, but you are going to have to make sure that your different wavelengths are compatible. This is maybe where you get the player who more tactical player who's wondering like, your character is optimized for casting debuff spells. Why are you trying to rodeo ride the dragon?
Funny. It's the only sufficient answer required for that question. Yeah, that's a really excellent point. You're not just in this collaborative tug back and forth with your GM. There are other people at the table who may have ideas about where their character arcs might take them, or wonder what you're whittling on about. So yeah, it's if you want to put on a one-man show, I suggest you head for Edinburgh during the Fringe and book a stage. You should ideally you're going to get that character development stuff out with the aid of your fellow players. Involve them. Like no one likes the lone mysterious stranger who has mysterious destiny stuff to do, presumably over there where you can't see it. Like, fine, go write that novel. But yeah, if you really want to get anything sort of done in terms of a character story arc, fold in the other players so they can play as part. There was a pulp system, pulp adventure system. The name escapes me now. That character creation, you sat down and sort of passed around. How are the other characters involved in my story?
Yeah,
Spirit of the Century.
That's the one. Yeah, Spirit of the Sanctuary.
Yeah,
Pretty good sort of team building exercise and a good way to establish those storylines ahead of time. So worth looking at for that alone. All right. Do we have any closers on this? I think we've made our case pretty well. Depending on the game, if you don't want stuff to happen to your character, then you could abstract it and say, well, character advancement for this player is about just getting stuff. Your core people. Some people would equate some of what we've talked about to basically straight up body horror. So instead, satisfy or explore their need for advancement through new armor, swords that have particular legends attached to them, things like that, or obligations that are more social than kind of requirements of their body, spirit, or mind. You can probably piling on responsibilities is an interesting character development. It's not that you're just out fighting monsters for profit. Now you're doing it because you've got made mayor somewhere, maybe even against your will. But those can be interesting ways to advance the character as well, and to give them an arc without necessarily chopping bits of them off, which, on reflection, is somewhat immature.
Yeah, I don't largely agree with what Savage said there. Of kind of really depends on the group in the game. Some games your group's going to be all about it and pretty happy to roll table results and see what happens, and other times they're going to want it to be a more collaborative experience. I do think the GM just decides is fraught with peril.
Oh yeah,
it's because it can seem arbitrary and mean.
I would say to players, like, if recognize inside yourself how much control you're willing to pass on your character, and are you going to pass it to other players, to your GM or to your systems? But ultimately, at the end, it's going to be your responsibility for the character you play, and while other factors, players or systems or whatever, are going to have a big impact on that. And is going, the truly great characters will come when everything is in sync: system, GM, party, group, vibe, etc. Not you cannot pass all responsibility for a character not turning out onto other people. Like, at the end of the day, you're the one who can shift lanes to be more mechanical, or to accept, oh, yes, my arm's getting chopped off, or, oh, yes, I'm mayor of this town now. Ultimately, you're the one who's going to have responsible for your character. You can ask for help. You can ask for help from system. You can ask for help from GM or other players, and be open to having those conversations to enhance the game for everyone. But responsibility is going to be you in the end.
Okay. Who wants to take us out?
And if you want to hop in on our Discord and share us your tales of woe, be it or success with your either by having GM inflicting horrendous horror upon you, or through your collaborative efforts, you can hit us up on our Discord and have a character moaning thread. I've ran out of steam on this one. You take it over there, Savage.
My phone started going off. Apparently, we can't avoid advancements and changes in our lives and characters. Regardless, sometimes the phone rings and you must answer. Yeah, there you go. That is unfortunately where this one's going to land. We did the social media stuff. Cool. We're out of here.
Grant,
have a good one, folks. This party's over. Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. Join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter. Or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license. But you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.